A lot of drugs, a lot of drinking, a lot of, it was just kind of a very, very insane way to live. And Jeffrey could be very insufferable at times. And I think that's when he had his trumpet or saxophone or something.
And the door flies open, and here comes Jeffrey, man, and he's got like he's got these cases, like these beat up, leather cases. And he goes, "Hey, man, I just went to the pawn shop, man, and I bought this stuff, man. Which one do you want, man? Do you want the trumpet or do you want the saxophone?"
For me personally, the horn, I wasn't afraid of the horn.
We just started honking away on these things, and Jeffrey just immediately starts going, nah, and we're making this like horrible noise in this bar. The bartender is just like shaking his head.
I just wanted to hide the horn.
I remember him coming out with a trumpet one show, and he had just gotten it that day, and he just played, this just ridiculous shit. Look, I'm Roland Kirk. Well, you're not, Jeffrey, but I'll give you a lot of points for, believing in yourself. It's like, what the fuck is that? It's a bunch of noise.
I just wanted to get the horn and throw it out the fucking bus window.
He wanted to do a jazz gig. So they put it in the LA Weekly, Peter Case and Jeffrey Lee Pierce, their jazz gig. And for some reason, like both, because of both of the bands being involved, the place just packs out with people. But we only knew 2 songs. We did Love Supreme and we did So What.
I think to Jeff, music was not a static thing.
The gig was just a complete disaster.
It was a kind of flowing river, and you splashed in it, you played in it.
We cleared out the club with our horns, man, because like that was a way of like, well, you can't say we sold out, can you? You know what I mean? You can't say, anything about it. We cleared the joint out with a bunch of noise,
It was always a kind of moving, flowing thing.
That's a way of like maintaining your freedom as an artist.
Beholden to no audience, right?
If you blow them out of the club, they can't. The one thing they can't say about you is, you're kissing their ass.
I'm gonna play backwards trumpet, just like Jimi Hendrix, played with her behind his back. Right? Is that like a Hendrix type thing?
That was something Jeffrey did throughout his career. As soon as people started liking him for something, he would do something to kind of jam it back in their face. So the next thing you know, we were doing John Coltrane's A Love Supreme, or A Burrito Supreme, as we often refer to it. And he would go on stage with this beat-up, dented trumpet and just blow it and squawk and make a bunch of noises. And it was, again, he was just kind of blowing that trumpet right up the ass of everybody that liked Gun Club.
He would do all sorts of things to, sort of piss off audiences.
We wanted to piss people off, and we wanted to make people think, and we wanted to just create an atmosphere of some kind of nihilism.
Shut up!
I think Jeffrey was going for that kind of, gee, is Morrison going to take his penis out on stage kind of vibe? Jeffrey Lee was going for, geez, God, I hope to God Jeffrey Lee doesn't take his penis out on stage,
It was always chaos, and it was always swirling. It was always present, and it was, the goal was to be a troublemaker.
I guess there was a pretty good sized crowd at this club, but they weren't digging what Jeffrey was doing. And finally, at some point, he just turned around to the audience and said, "Hey, wait, well, you know what? Fuck Texas." And I guess the entire place en masse attacked the stage and caused a minor riot.
If you can say one thing about Jeffrey Lee Pierce, you could say that he was fearless. He was fearless in his dedication to art, and I mean, even though he wasn't a fighter, he would, he'd call somebody a pussy and then run. So that's good. That's a good thing. People don't do often enough.
It really fueled him to piss people off, and the more that I think, the more the crowd disliked it sometimes, the more he enjoyed it, and the farther he would take it.
I mean, I just took it as it went, but I was investing time in this thing, and so I wanted to get something back, if not a career, at least a legitimate musical statement that would allow us to live off of it, so we could continue to create. And after a 2-month European tour, which was going pretty well, actually, I asked the road manager in Paris how much money would be remaining at the end, because, I mean, thousands of fans were showing up at every show. He said none. And a week before that, I had 15 hours of live videotape I had taken of every show and interviews, etc. That had been stolen in Manchester, England. So I had real trouble kind of figuring out how I was going to keep doing this. And then Jeff and the rest of the band told me, they're going to stay in London, actually. They're not moving back to the U.S. It's now a London band. And so I didn't have a document of the tour. I wasn't going to get paid for it. And there was effectively not going to be a version of that band in the United States any longer. So I got my passport along with my friend Amy, who was there with me on the tour. And she and I snuck out of the hotel at 6 o'clock one morning. We had to wait, unfortunately, 18 hours to catch a train to Calais in France. But we did. Got the train, got to Calais, got on a hovercraft, went to Dover, England, got on another train, went to London, waited a day, got on a plane, flew to New York, got our car, which was in storage in Queens, drove that car all the way back to Los Angeles, and escaped Gun Club forever.
Terry fit really great and knew the stuff, and teaching another drummer and going through the whole process of getting someone up to that level of intuition is a big drag. And having this great tour and then having all this stuff turned to shit, it's exhausting. Especially when you're on drugs and drunk the whole time. And I think we were feeling like we couldn't create something new or better at that point, and why continue? And so we parted ways there,
I think Jeff just grew weary of the whole Gun Club tag. And again, the Gun Club, with the exception of East Coast and some European countries, is a very obscure band. And to do all this trailblazing and to have very little in return for it, it must have been very frustrating. And to have not only one lineup, but two lineups, three, to completely dissolve in front of your eyes must have been very frustrating. And to have to deal with all these different personalities, it's like this little family. And to have three families leave you, I'm sure he must have just been really tired and, must have been really dreary. So he decided to do his own thing with Wild Weed.
Actually, Jeffrey asked me to play on that record, but I thought, I think you should make a record that doesn't have me on it, So we all landed in London and kind of did things, and that's when he met up with Nick Sanderson and Rami Mori in his band, the Jeffrey Lee Quartet, the live band for the record. And Rami had become his girlfriend, and they started living together and being a couple.
I do remember him being hooked up with Rami and that being sort of pleasant, and he seemed very solid with that relationship.
He finally had a home and her roommates and her friends and his friends.
I visited Jeff in London, and I was really pleasantly surprised to see how relaxed he was. He really had picked a life, a woman that was making him happy.
So, one day, I was talking to Jeffrey, and he suggested that we make a Gun Club again with Rami and Nick. I think he was not really into doing the solo thing, and maybe the popularity wasn't as much, and he just thought it was maybe time to ask. Maybe, I think with him and Rami, they decided it'd be a good idea. And so I suggested that the band, instead of being in London, get out of London and record in Berlin.
Mother Juno is just such a great record. To go from something that was genre breaking but pretty straightforward to some surreal masterpiece like the Breaking Hands and Hearts. You know, the chord progressions might be simple, but there's just these nuances on this record.
A lot of those songs for Mother Juno album were very influenced by our childhood in LA. You know, there's like Lupita Screams, you know, just like using Mexican imagery and sound, you know, kind of a hard rock sound, kind of Yellow Eyes, definitely. Jeffrey said he just like had an idea that this was a kind of a song that you would hear coming out of a garage in El Monte, you know.
Around 86, 87, when his band put out the Mother Juno album, I was touring a lot in Europe with the Rollins band, and we would play together on festival dates and stuff. And Jeffrey was combating, you know, his chemical abuses, and he got clean right around the time of Mother Juno. He got all lean, and the album was good. The tour's going great. You know, he's doing really well.
That band it shocked people, especially like the British press, who really had gotten down on Jeffrey, you know, because you can be their favorite, and then when you go out of favor with them, you know, you're really out of favor. And they would say like a few journalists would say some pretty insulting things, you know, like, you know, personally insulting things. And, you know, and that really made people, that band and those shows really made people like go like, oh my God, you know, not only is he, you know, not Fat Jeffrey anymore, he's stronger than ever. And there was a real fierceness to the band in those days. And Jeffrey really, although in not great health, he was super strong on stage, you know, and the band was super strong, and that music was super tough music. And so the first couple tours, you know, definitely for that album were really great, you know, on stage. And it was just like a bit later when things went back to not so good. Jeffrey's, you know, abuse of alcohol and drugs and his actually failing health started to get the better of him, and obviously reflected in the shows, you know. And maybe that's like was part of the beginning of the end for me, because I think maybe my heart had gone out of wanting to do the Gun Club in general. The shows were starting to get really more patchy, and things kept just going on, and we made that Pastoral Hide and Seek record, the Divinity record.
Yeah, after the Divinity EP, Kid Congo Powers left from that period, and it was kind of a dire time for Jeff.
It was not like a dramatic, like, oh my God, I'm quitting because I can't stand this. It was more like, I think the whole thing was fading into some weird area.
Jeff was coming up with the Lucky Jim material, which was Jeff always had this running thing of somewhat morose records, but this one was especially dire. A House Is Not a Home kind of sums up that time. I know his health was failing at that time, and he was in and out of hospitals, a lot of drug rehabs at that time, and I know his relationship with Rami was fairly rocky.
That was falling apart, and I knew he was upset about it, but I didn't actually hear a lot about it from him.
I think she eventually left with the drummer, which is pretty hard to take if you're the singer and the drummer gets your chick. I mean, that's some Spinal Tap stuff.
He felt really betrayed because it was Nick and Rami that, got together, but I also understood Rami's reason for leaving him. she had taken so much care of him, and she couldn't do it anymore, and he was getting really crazy. But he had physically lost himself, which I think made him lose his mind. I think nothing was processing itself right. And didn't he go back to Japan?
Jeff got really into Japanese culture and Japan in general. He talks about it in his book a lot. He visited Japan all the time.
He would keep himself inspired. I think that was part of the romance with Romy, and part of his romance with Japan and Vietnam, and that Far Eastern thing, because he had that element of adventurer in him, and did promote that mythology. And I thought, it's brave to do that stuff. I didn't go to Vietnam, hitchhiking around or taking trains or whatever he did.
Guys like that, if they go to Southeast Asia, they're not going really, they're not going to look at ancient ruins at Angkor Wat, they're going for drugs. So it was like, oh, great.
Yeah, after that, I guess he came back to LA and was very fucked up. So that's when they made Lucky Jim. So it was, for one, economically not sound, and plus I told Jeffrey already I didn't want to do anymore.
His health was failing pretty bad, but you got to hand it to Jeff Pierce. This guy was doing very poor, and health-wise and mentally he was shot, but even his last work was fantastic. And you can hear how sounds like Jeff's really on his last leg, and he truly was.
So we went down to the hospital, Keith Morris and I, in Santa Monica, and we tried to talk Jeffrey into, go into a rehab, and if you get sober, then we can get you a liver or something like that. And he just really wouldn't have any part of it, He was, there was a moment of clarity that he kind of, and then the self-destructive Jeffrey mind took over, and he said, I know more than the doctors do. They've been telling me I'm going to die for years. I've been studying my disease. They don't even know my disease. Well,
I know he was hanging out a lot at Viper Room, and there's lots of stories about this, and he was, and so I didn't actually see him a lot until I think I guess Mike Mart and some people told him, suggested he do a gun club show or two or whatever, and that they'd make a band, and he asked me to play, and I was, and he sounded good enough to me.
It was billed as a gun club, and it was Jeffrey and I and Kid, and
then we really, blew it out, and it was good, playing the songs. And then we got asked to do this other show. Remember, that was not so good. Jeffrey looked really bad. His face was really swollen, almost looking like frog eyes, He was so bloated, from whatever, his illness.
By the time that they did their last show at the Ringling Sisters benefit, I knew he was going to die very soon then. I mean, he looked so horrible.
Jeffrey went to his father's to go dry out for one, and his father was actually really helping him with that and being really cool about that. And he was writing the book, the Go Tell the Mountain, for Henry.
We worked on a lyric section, a prose section, because he had all this stuff going on, and he was showing us all this new stuff he'd been writing.
He was reading me from the book. He was reading me all the stuff about Isaac Hayes and talking to rappers or spies on the Tokyo Tower and all this crazy stuff. And we were really laughing so much about it. He thought it was hysterically funny.
And we would spread all the lyrics all over the floor, little bits of writing on half pieces of paper. And this place would look like, all this stuff had been washed up on the floor, And we would piece the book together little by little. And then Jeffrey died.
No matter how much you're ready for it, you're never ready for it. And it was just really, was like so devastating,
He probably didn't, like a lot of people, didn't allow himself to appreciate what he had accomplished. And that's a sad thing in the artist mentality in general, and it definitely applies to Jeffrey. Where nothing became popular with quotes around it, so therefore I'm shit. But it actually starts with I'm shit. So therefore, no matter what happens to it, I'm still shit. That's a bad place, and we're all we're all guilty of that.
He had to be so aggressive to make his thing work that in a lot of in the town that it caused him a lot of grief, and I think it hurt him,
It's more mysterious and interesting now that he's gone. Put it this way, this is kind of a weird thing to say, but guys like him, music like that is usually done by people who are dead.
People that do stuff like Jeffrey, they're talented despite the shit they do to kill themselves, They're not talented because of it. They're talented despite it. He had a huge talent. He might have thought he was stealing all this stuff. I'll tell you, man, he was doing a lot of things that were completely original in ways that, like, other people, wish they could have been doing them.
Not many people can say that they invented something. Very few.
Now that he's gone, he is totally legendary now. He is lore at this point. Just because of all the imagery of the songs, the great romantic aspect of his playing and that voice. What a lonely, beautiful sound his voice was. It was like, something calling from a bayou somewhere. Really something else.
Jeff is definitely a touchstone for a lot of creative people. I miss the guy incredibly.
I'm conflicted because, I hit this guy in the face with a golf club so many times in my mind. At the same time, if I didn't know him, I wouldn't be the cool guy that I am now.
I saw Jeff in a nightclub. I was just visiting Los Angeles, and I see him there. And I had been told, he looks bad. He's gained a lot of weight. He's lost a lot of weight. He's just, on his last leg. And I'm looking at him before he noticed me, and I'm thinking, God, he looks good. He looks like he always has. I mean, he really didn't look any worse for wear. And so I just walked up to him, and I just stuck my hand out, and I said, "How you doing, Jeff?" And he stuck his hand out, and we shook hands, and it was just like, I don't know, all that rancor, all that animosity just disappeared in 1 second. Like it never existed. And I just thought, it just seemed like a Hollywood thing to me. And then what does he do? He reaches into his wallet, pulls out a business card, and it just says, "Show business." And it's got his phone number on it. And I thought, perfect.
Listen, what is it? What's going on with you, Terry? You're writing a book. You wrote a book.
Yeah, I'm actually just kind of putting the finishing touches on it. It really is, as corny as it sounds, a celebration of everything that we did at that time, and it'll be happy. It'll be sad.
There's nothing corny about it, and you've already sold a copy too. One for me, one for Chuck.
Oh, great.
For
Oh,
sure.
good. I thought I'd have to give you a free one.
No, absolutely not. And Ward, how about you? What are you doing?
I just, I have a band called the Liquor Giants that, plays occasionally, but not really pursuing the lucrative and glamorous rock and roll lifestyle these days.
Ward and Terry, it seems a shame because you've made some of the greatest punk rock and roll the world has ever heard. And I want to thank you for coming to the Mighty Morning Show. This is Indy 1031. My name's Dickie Barrett.